All right, most of you might have already been on my teacher website before, so this might be some easy navigation for you. But for those that have not been to my website, basically go to the grade level that you pertain to, grade 11, 12, grade 10. On your phone, you're going to have to move it sideways. If you keep it frontwards or upwards, you won't be able to see these drop boxes. Okay, so make sure that your phone is sideways so that you can see it. But if you're accessing it from the computer, navigate through to your website. So for example, to my grade 10s, okay, you should have your notes, so lesson 1 with the homework attached to that pertaining day. Okay, but on top of that, okay, we have here is a submission box. Okay, so write in your name, your last name, your email that you use, whichever one you use, and basically that should be sent directly via to my mail. The last thing here is upload file. So if you cannot send it via just typing or a computer, it's just math homework that you'd rather show me, take a picture of it. Simply just take a picture of it, and I will receive it. I promise that. Okay, and I'll send you an email just as a receipt, as confirmation, or just message me and just ask me as well, and I can double check that as well. Okay, so that should be relatively easy to navigate through. All right, have a good day. Hello, grade 12 essential math class. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Hopefully you had a good spring break. I'm excited to have you guys back. We're going to be teaching online. I posted on my teacher website basically the routine that I'm going to be kind of going over is teaching my lesson through YouTube. That's number 1. Number 2, I'm going to be using my teacher website for you guys to hand in your work and to post the homework there, and to just stay available either through Instagram if you want to send me a message. If you want to email me, more than welcome to do that as well. You would have gotten the message, or you would have heard. And if you have not, basically the province has decided to cancel the provincial exam, so you won't have a provincial exam in this class, but for those that want to raise their mark, it's probably a good idea to raise your mark up for university requirements. I suggest you do that. So we're going to be moving on to vehicle finance. So it's a lot of information, a lot of words. So I'm going to go through a lot of the definitions with you. Please have the notes on you as I'm teaching. That's probably the best measure, just so that if something's not understanding, you have the notes right there to help you as well on top of the video that I give you as well. Homework marks are homework marks, still the same thing. But the important thing is also asking questions and giving me a conference. So if you have any questions, please reach me out so that I can help you as much as possible. I will be moving on, but the best way to know whether to move on or not is to make sure you guys understand the material. So stay posted, keep me up to date. Have a good one, grade 12s. Hello, grade 12 essential math. So as I mentioned before, we're going to be talking about purchasing a new vehicle and all about vehicle finance. For some of you who already have a vehicle, maybe a vehicle has been passed down, you don't have to worry too much about the idea of purchasing a new vehicle, but it might be something that comes across as adulthood strikes you. So things that you really need to think about, a lot of notes we'll go over. A lot of this I'm expecting you guys to just read through and understand. If you have questions, you can ask me yourself. It talks about, for example, before you buy, what sorts of factors or things you should know. My best suggestion is to look at autotrader.com is a really good place to start. But to do your research beforehand, so you're not walking into the dealership not really knowing or understanding what's going on. So the key things before you buy. Okay, why you should buy a vehicle to begin with? Well, it's very convenient. You don't want to be taking the bus too often to work or school. It might be a difficult task for you. The idea that you're independent, you don't need to ask for people for rides, trying to avoid expensive repair costs, replacing your present vehicle because it's getting old. So things like that might be reasons as to why you buy. So the important thing there is making sure you establish whatever needs in order to prepare for that. whatever it may be. For example, okay, do you really need the vehicle? Are you, is your work about 2 minutes away where you're going to be using the vehicle much to commute to work? That might be the only time you commute. You probably don't need a vehicle. Will you be driving only one vehicle? Or will you be the only one driving the vehicle? Something you have to think about. Will you be using the vehicle for a carpool? When will you use the vehicle? Will you be using it to commute to work? Types of vehicle that appeal to you. There's a lot of things. It all depends on, well, yourself and what you decide, what you find important, okay? Types of vehicles. I mean, lots of vehicles that people might be interested in. Just make sure it's in your range of budget. Don't be looking for supercars when you might not be making a salary that can afford that type of stuff. So what it talks about here is sedans being very common. A four-door with a trunk in the near vehicle, the size of the class of sedans based on combined volume of interior passenger and such, with cargo space. If you're someone that likes to hold a bunch of stuff in your car, then you're probably going to want a bigger car or something that can carry all that load. The classification for larger vehicles based on gross vehicle weight rating. Gross vehicle weight rating refers to the total weight of a vehicle plus its carrying capacity. The carrying capacity of a vehicle is the amount of weight the vehicle can carry, including the passengers. So something to note. This is where I want to talk about. Okay, so this is dealing with what can you afford. So we're going to be talking about the total service ratio. It should look very similar to when we did housing with GDSR. So we're looking for a specific percentage of which you can afford to pay for a car or the loans. So we call it TDS instead. And this time it's not same as the GDSR. We're looking at a 40%. So it shouldn't exceed over 40%. That means you can't afford it. Okay. And that's pretty much what it talks about here as well. So this is your formula. Please make sure to highlight. It should be in your set notes there. So monthly housing costs by all other monthly debts divided by the gross monthly income and then multiply that by 100. You should get a certain percentage with that. So let's go through example number 1 together. So let's go through example number 1 just so we have an idea of what this means. All right. So Chaska and JC are a newly married couple who have just moved into their own house. They are trying to decide if they can afford a new car. The car they wish to purchase will cost them $149 bi-weekly. They're currently living in a bungalow with a monthly mortgage of $1,200. Heating costs are $89 a month, and property taxes are $1,300 a year. Chaska also has a credit card debt, and she's paying it off with monthly payments of $120. Chaska and JC's combined gross monthly income is $4,600. All right, so let's make sense of all these numbers here. So living in a bungalow with a monthly mortgage of $1,200. Okay, so let's highlight that. So monthly mortgage of $1,200. Okay, so that's one expense we're going to be dealing with. We have heating costs of $89. We have property taxes of $1,300 a year. We have a credit card debt that she's paying off for $120. Okay. And we have our monthly income, okay, how much they make is $4,600. So the important thing is, one, we got our income, and then our monthly payments. So this is a monthly payment of $1,200. We're going to input that. Heating costs $89. That seems like a monthly cost to me as well. It says a month. But here we go. We have property taxes a year. Okay, that's the kind of keynote here is this is for the year. We need to divide this by 12. Okay, so in order to get $1,300 divided by 12, you should get an answer of $108.33 per month. So just keep that in mind because we're going to add all those numbers together pretty soon. And the credit card payment of $120. So what we want to do is, and I have it here just for you, is we want to add all those monthly payments up. So everything on the top here is all the monthly payments that we have to put because we're paying for those, right? We need to pay for those. Okay, and we also want to multiply by 100 to get our percentage. Okay, so in this case, 4,600 was our annual income. So once we divide these two numbers together and multiply by 100, you should get a percentage of 39.5%. Do that on a calculator to make sure you get the right answer as me as well. But it's also in the notes as well to help you out, which is right here as well. So we added them all up together. The key thing there is we're missing one of those numbers that I haven't talked about yet. We're missing, or we haven't talked about this little fancy number here. Okay, and we're going to talk about it now. So the first part of the question, it said the car they wish to purchase will cost them $149 bi-weekly. So what we have to do is include that in the cost here. Okay, so this $149 bi-weekly here, we're going to have to include that, okay, eventually into our costs here. But Mr. A, why is it $298 here and $149 bi-weekly? Well, remember, bi-weekly simply means, right, once every 2 weeks. So they're paying this car payment actually twice a month, right? Approximately twice a month. So bi-weekly just simply means once every 2 weeks. So we have to actually multiply this $149 by 2. Okay, we ended up at $298. So once we add all those numbers divided by 4,600, we should get a TDS ratio of 39.5%. Okay, so just keep a note what I mentioned before is the bi-weekly payments. So that's for question A, calculating. Should they buy the car? Well, let's find out. Okay, this TDS ratio is very close to 40%. Therefore, Chaska and JC may not be leaving enough money for unexpected expenses if they do purchase the car. Chaska and JC may want to consider purchasing a car that has a lower biweekly payment. If, however, the credit card debt is nearly paid off, they may decide that they can afford the car, not including the credit card payment. The TDS ratio would have been 36.9. So very close to the 40%. So keep that in mind. Yes, it is lower than the rate that you're looking for. That definitely answers the question. But think to yourself, am I really close to that percentage? Yes. Probably should look for somewhere in the ballpark of anywhere lower than 35%. Okay. Let's try example 2. Right, so let's look at example 2 here. It says Cade wants to determine how much money he can spend on a vehicle. He is currently living in an apartment with rental fees of $850 a month. So let's highlight that. That's gonna be some important information there. Cade's rent does not include heating, which is an additional, so he's gonna have to pay $60 a month here. Cade has no credit card debit. Awesome. And his monthly income in this case is $2,500. All right. So we're gonna have to do a couple things here based on the total debit. It's asking for how much money can he. What's the maximum amount of money he can spend? Well, remember that 40%. Okay, this 0.4 comes from the 40% of what he can possibly afford on something. So this would be his maximum amount. So this is his income that he makes. If we wanted to multiply by, in this case, the TDS, total debit service ratio, okay, we're gonna have to multiply that by the 40% allotted. So we get an actual $1,000 of how much he can actually afford on a car, not including how much he's going to have to pay for the expenses. So as we mentioned before, $850 a month and $60 a month, which we have here. We have $910 per month, okay, on renting and heating. He's going to have to subtract those two values in this case. So you subtract those two values, he really only has $90 left a month. Therefore, in this case, he's left with $90 a month to spend on a vehicle. So we flipped it around and we wanted to find out the total amount, okay, or a dollar amount of how much he can afford for a car. It would be $90. Okay, so the follow-up to B should be rather simple. It says that Cade sees an advertisement payment, and it says that the Dodge Neon for $130 a month. Can he afford it? Unfortunately, no, he cannot, right? He can only afford $90. So no, he can't afford a car. That would cost him too much, since he can only afford anything that would be $90 worth per month. Um, Shopping for a new vehicle. So as I mentioned before, a lot of this is really information based. So all I'm asking you is simply just go through the notes, read them through. They should be pretty self-explanatory, but if you have any questions, just ask me. So it talks about saving money before you buy. Talks about before driving your new vehicle homes. So some things to make sure you take into consideration there. For your homework, okay, which should be in my teacher notes here. It talks about certain vehicle decisions. So this is an opinionated question for you. Is it important to you, for example, standard transmission? Well, you're going to have to find out what that means. Fuel consumption, is that important to you? If it's not, what I want you to do is do it on a rating scale, okay? There's quite a bit of things to look at there. So check off those. Two, state the highest allowable percentages of gross debit ratio, and total. We just talked about those, and then it gives you a couple of examples of what to go through, of what we just went through with TDS. So if you have any comments, questions, just ask me, and I'd be happy to help.